Good morning. My name is Jessica Arendt. I am well known throughout the industry as the hemp enchantress. I advise and consult on all things compliance, from human resources to content, from seed to shelf, both nationally and internationally. I've been in the industry since 2015. I specialize in the compliance aspect entirely. I represent BH Private Label. We are a private label production company out of Daytona. And I'm really struggling with my mic in the morning, so kind of bear with me. This panel is full of amazing professionals in the beauty space. I'm going to allow each panelist the opportunity to present themselves, 90 seconds, for their own shameless self-promotion, as we like to call it around here, tell you who they are, why they have been selected to sit on this panel will be evident to you. So go ahead.
My name is Maria Chrysler, and I founded the company AB2 Naturals, Shaman Productions, and our product line is AB2 Naturals. So we're an exhibitor here. I was a clinical scientist in the medical space and dealt with a lot of pathology and immunology and microbiology specialty, hematology as well. So all of those things. So I owned and operated a large radiological full service imaging facility with OBGYN family practices and a skincare medical aesthetics clinic for about a decade. I have a master's degree in business and healthcare administration, and I've been researching for a fair amount of 20 years, pretty much on my own. Co-authored some scientific journals and worked in a lot of pathology. So I now have my own cannabinoid company and submitted for patents in 2019 to patent processes dealing with cannabinoid isolates. So that's pretty much my space here. And then we have some beauty products and that are applicable, to this forum. But I have a scientific perspective and approach to things, and then have, all of that outward experience, so I can bring all of that and hopefully answer any questions that a lot of you might have about getting into the space.
Thank you. Kim?
Sure. Wow, how do I follow that? No, that's impressive. Amazingly smart woman. I got a theology degree, and now I make CBD infused sexual health and wellness products and beauty products. So,
which are amazing.
So I'm the founder of a company called Privy Peach. Privy meaning sharing in something secret or private, and then peach was just very feminine type innuendo. So I wanted it to be really fun. But our primary focus is on sexual health and wellness. I saw a really big need for that, and struggled with pain during sex myself for years. And I just had no really good solutions that the doctors gave me. So I wanted to come up with something that would help people look good, feel good, and smell good. So all of my products, my beauty line is all vegan, cruelty-free cosmetics like bath bombs, lip butters, lip gloss. I've played with a lot of different things, and those are the best sellers right now. But I wanted all of my products to be more mainstream and not necessarily smell like patchouli in the typical cannabis type sense. So I have lots of fun scents like pear berries and cherries and that kind of thing. So I'm just into the bright colors and fun, good smelling stuff and stuff that makes you feel good. But I don't have the kind of background that she
It doesn't matter. I don't have your background.
I'm like, that's cute. I'm going to make that. Okay, that feels great. Awesome.
That's right.
And it works.
That's right.
So yeah, that's my thing.
Perfect. Well, I can't follow in terms of looks or background here, so I yield to these two. What I would say, though, is that I come from the grassroots perspective, no pun intended. I've been a grower for over 40 years. In 2001, I was in New York at a trade show and found myself at ground zero on 9/11 as a first responder. And 13 years later, I had developed stage 4 throat and neck cancer that was inoperable, had engulfed the carotid artery to my brain, and was basically told treatment was my only option. As a grower, I've won a number of awards through cannabis competitions in California, had my medical card since 2004, helping others, and found myself in this place 6 months later, completely, they call NED, no evidence of disease. So I come at it from a grassroots perspective. I now have a foundation that I started after that called the Canna Causes Foundation. And what we do is we consult with patients who are referred from physicians. I have over 2,000 patients, and the products that I developed for our topical line came from my treatments of chemotherapy and radiation. So efficacy is paramount. I learn everything by doing. I've also been published in the International Journal of MS Care for a study I did on the data that we collect. So I could probably go on and on. We have a topical line also that we produce, and I started a small lab because I found it very hard to find a manufacturer who could do boutique craft batches of products without unable to get it consistent all the time. So I have a small lab. I do white labeling and craft batches.
Thank you. One of the benefits of attending the CBD Expos is that you get exposure and insights from some incredible professionals in the space with incredible experience. So without further ado, let me open this up and let's get to the questions. Theoretically speaking, what is the hype and what does the CBD in all of these beauty products actually do? Maria?
Guess it depends on the product. Essentially, a lot of people may or may not know this, but CBD acts as a vasodilator. So when you're talking about products like, the intimacy products or any kind of a beauty product, a topical product, you're actually opening up capillary fill and dilation. So you're getting a nice plumping effect, which is why you're getting a little bit less pain during intercourse and things like that. So I think that it would be nice to have, how do I want to say this? Not regulation, but you have to be careful about the types of products and the amount of CBD that you use in those products, obviously, and then where you're applying them. For instance, you're not going to, use a lot of CBD for a hemorrhoid, right? Because you don't want the dilation. So you have to know how to counteract some of those effects. So it is important, I think, to understand, at the cellular level, what's happening with the CBD, and then understand how it pertains to your product and know how to make it applicable or counteract certain effects. And then obviously make sure you don't lose efficacy. Does that sound like I answered that? That's one effect. But yeah, you can use it in a lot of products for a lot of great things.
Anybody want to add anything to that?
I just took over your space there.
No, not.
Yep. Please. You want to add on to that?
Nope.
So I would just like to add that I agree wholeheartedly with what she's saying, but also when you're developing a product, one size doesn't fit all, which is really important. And what I found in the beauty industry, and I've done the IBS event in Las Vegas several times, in IECSC, and what people were coming out with in products were CBD and mascara. Like, I couldn't tell you what CBD does for that. I mean, maybe it helps, reduce the inflammation in the eyelashes or something. But the hype that you spoke to, it's about the disinformation. And it's about everybody's trying to get on the bandwagon of developing a product, put CBD in anything and everything, and it will sell. Mm-hmm. They are not educated. They're not educating the consumers. And that's why I do what I do when I speak to community groups and whatnot about what are the benefits of it. Speak to the endocannabinoid system. And if you're using a product and it doesn't work for what you're trying to use it for, then what do you do next? And that's one of the biggest missed opportunities, I think, for a lot of people that are coming into this space. They don't educate themselves when they have a product to know what works, what doesn't, and then what to do next and offer a suggestion. It's all about making money.
Would you say that the why in your mission, your core values, your business directive, your why matters?
100%. Yeah, I think that, again, I mean, I'll go back to the first why is everybody perceives it as profits over people. And it needs to be people over profits. If you're just trying to do good for people, that's my why. The fact that I get to stand or sit here amongst you,
especially after your diagnosis, is huge. It's a battle. I think everybody has a big personal story.
yeah. So for me, it's about paying it forward. I'm in this space. I've got a lot of background and experience in the plant. And what I learned after I went into remission was that is just to pay it forward. It's just to help people. Be transparent, be honest and open. And this is an industry that has the least amount of that, really, to be honest with you. So if you're going to get into it, just find people to align with that have core values that align with your values. And that's really the easiest way. I'll turn it over to somebody else to speak into that.
You agree?
That's
Well,
great.
that's why you went in it, right?
For me.
Yeah,
I mean, definitely my why is what keeps me going.
She's in a great space too. As you get older, male and female, everyone goes through this transition, this aging transition. So her space is wonderful because as women get older, and start going through even a perimenopause and or have that happen earlier on, you get collagen reduction in in your vaginal space, and with that reduction, your tissue actually starts to pull away from the edges of your walls, not to get too gross for anybody, but so it's nice. Isolate CBD actually does work very well, to have that plumping effect. So she's in a really great space, right? I'd say check out her booth. There's probably some great things there for everyone.
Okay, so I'm going to, Kim, let's switch it up. I have a question. Topical CBD's most enticing attributes are the anti-inflammatory, analgesic, antibacterial, antifungal properties and attributes that we study. A 2014 study found that CBD helps suppress breakouts by regulating the oil production of the sebaceous glands. This leads to all kinds of suggestions about product ideas and formulas, which takes us to the mascara concept. Do you see value in putting it in everything on the beauty shelves, or is there a point in which it reaches the absurd? And can you give examples?
Oh, definitely. It makes me crazy when I see people kind of exploiting CBD, because then people take it less seriously. When you see they were selling a CBD infused mattress, and really, I'm serious. And CBD infused pillowcases. Oh, it's going to calm you. No, that's kind of not how it works actually at all. So I really don't like that because it just becomes laughable at some point. Also, the mascara, I don't really understand what that would do if it's not touching the skin. I also saw a CBD infused nail polish, and I didn't quite understand that one either. But obviously the anti-inflammatory benefits of CBD in all topicals is really, I think, the biggest selling point. Because once your body's in harmony, it's going to start functioning the way that it should. And so maybe it's your glands, like you're saying, overproductive glands like that, the inflammation causing the breakouts, and even the dry skin, because your skin is just, overreacting to the elements and stuff. So definitely also, I see a lot of people who are putting in such minimal amounts. I don't want to keep going back to the intimate space because I know this is a beauty panel, so I'm trying to
Hey, there's beauty and intimacy.
That is true.
Intimacy is beautiful.
Yeah, because that's where my big passion is on the intimate products. But some of my competitors, just so that they could put like a condom compatible product out there, they're putting like 25 milligrams of CBD or 50 milligrams in an 8-ounce bottle. And I'm like, that's not going to do what it's supposed to do. And I'm very passionate about making sure that the concentrations are enough for the products to actually work. Because I suffered, sorry, see, I'm getting emotional too.
No,
Yeah,
everyone has a story.
I suffered from terrible pain during sex for years. In 2012, I was raped and I was injured pretty bad. And the fact that my products help people not deal with that, because it was absolutely horrible. My marriage was just, if you can't have sex with your partner, there's a lot of intimacy is obviously not just sex, but it's a big part of relationships. So being able to provide a product that helps people not experience pain. I've had people email me and say, you saved my marriage. I had an email that said, I cried happy tears. It's the first time I've been able to have sex without pain in as long as I can remember. I'm so emotional today.
It's okay.
But anyway,
fine.
And beauty too, yay.
They,
But yeah, making sure products work. Just keep the legitimacy in the industry. Like, don't exploit it. Don't,
Do it for the right reasons.
yeah, do it for the right reasons, not just for the dollar. Like he was saying earlier, like, as long as your mission is people, the money will follow. But if you're chasing that dollar and putting out stuff, that's a placebo or just kind of like tricking people or exploiting it, it'll catch up with you. And it just hurts the industry as a whole.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's amazing to me. I have been doing these panels as a moderator this whole season. So the last 3 or 4 of these events. And I historically travel around the world doing this. This panel gives me goosebumps. And the reason why is because they're opening up themselves to the vulnerability of expression to share with you why they're doing this. This is what makes them insanely successful. And we want to definitely keep that in mind. And I can't thank you enough for being so open.
Could I add a little bit onto that? Is that okay? I just wanted to add about the efficacy and the treatment. So being in the beauty space, also estheticians in the crowd. Okay, so microabrasion dirt, dermaplaning, any type of, in fact, like tattoos, right? We're inflaming the skin. So the anti-inflammatory benefit, antibacterial, all the things that were mentioned, antifungal, are really great as a topical to reduce that. Waxing, great. So that's the space that I have come from in that beauty side. The other side is working with patients. I have over 2,000 patients that I've been tracking, and it's the same with them because they're, like I have a contingency of MS patients, and there are over 300 of them, and they have spasticity, neuropathy, pain, all of these different things that just don't go away. So topically, they can get some relief, whereas otherwise maybe taking, and maybe it's not the relief, a full relief, right? It's treating the symptom, not the problem. But that's also a benefit. So I'd encourage you is if you're going to go into the business or start or launch a product, is go out and get a study. Find 10 people to go and try it on. Get their feedback. Don't just take someone's word for it unless you're dealing with somebody that you know is got some foundation.
Thank you. Mask face. There's another one for you. FDA ruling technically eliminates edibles from the space as being legal for CBD products. However, to date, as we know, spreading it topically is okay. How do you think the FDA will engage, and will there be restrictions on what we can and cannot add it to in the cosmetic space? Maria.
No doubt. There's no doubt that the FDA is coming. That's a good thing and a bad thing. Obviously, we want some standardization and we want some regulations so that we make sure that the space is protected. CBD is a wonderful ingredient for many things. And I'm a firm believer, having, come from the medical side of things, that we do need some regulation, which is fine. It's not harmful, unless you're up around, the 5 grams, 3 grams type of, none of us do that. But I do believe that we're going to see some serious limitations on anything that's full spectrum, which is a reason why we strictly use isolate, because I do believe that those things are coming. And you want to make sure that when you do get started, that you're not going to have to reinvent your entire brand. It is a lot of money to come up with an idea and then pay for all of your packaging and all of your marketing and basically your entire branding. So you do have to, if you're just starting in this space, you will have to pay attention to the regulations, which are different in different states and different countries. So basically have your futuristic plan of attack and understand how you're going to get there and how you're going to have plan B and maneuver. And many times I know that just by us starting up over the last couple of years, we've had to switch gears very quickly, just depending on, just the volatile situation, right? Pandemic versus, FDA regulations or whatever you get hit with. You want to make sure that you plan ahead.
I'd like to add to that. I was telling her earlier, I have some lovely people that I've been working with the FDA. I did not choose to contact them. They contacted me. And I'm very grateful that when I started out, I did my research. So when they came knocking on my door, none of my products said the trigger words that I'm not supposed to use. Yes, some of my marketing and some of the articles written about me definitely, throw me under the bus. But thankfully, I did not have to redo all of my packaging, and my packaging that I already had in compliance really saved me because I was able to send them photos. I'm still dealing with them. They're lovely people over there. They're not being super mean, but it sucks.
It's stressful.
It is very stressful, but planning ahead, if you are going to launch a cosmetic line or bath and beauty or intimate or whatever it is, make sure that you start out not making claims because it will bite you in the butt and it does get very expensive. Thank God I don't have to redo everything. But yeah, plan ahead, like she said, for sure.
There is a panel later this afternoon about what you can and cannot say. And I am part of that panel. You definitely want to sit in on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a different approach on that isolate versus full spectrum. Depending on what you're using the product for is whether or not you would use a full spectrum. Otherwise, if you're putting hemp, CBD, whatever, cannabis on the label, I'm from the position that if it says any of that, then that should be the active. And while you can put other ingredients in there that are organic, and we've done that, because people are riding on the back of that wave of a CBD product, right, in their marketing. But again, I come back to that whole full disclosure thing. People will put lidocaine, camphor, menthol, these types of masking agents in products. So that's not the CBD, that's the active, or the THC if it's a full spectrum, right? The less than 0.3%. In addition to the terpenes that might be available in those products. But to the point of the question as to topical versus ingestible, I think that while anything ingestible is definitely going to be regulated, and topical, as they've stated, the DEA stated back in 2016, that anything ingestible, because supplements weren't being regulated, and a lot of people were claiming CBD and hemp seed or hemp seed oil, hemp seed powder as a nutrient, and again, that hadn't been regulated. That's where a lot of that came into play. And I truly feel that when they said that they weren't going to go after topicals, the reason that they even include topicals is because they can't just say, we're going to go after this with cannabis. It's such a broad net that they have to cast, so they make sure they capture everything and everyone. And I just think also the feds are trying to figure out how do they capitalize on it, or the people that are
interesting.
behind them.
It's going to be really interesting. Yeah. The next couple of years is going to be really interesting. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you clarify from a scientific perspective quickly the difference between active and inactive?
Active and inactive.
Yeah.
Sure. You want me to use my own example?
Just
I don't know if I can do that quickly. For instance, so I have a couple of different approaches with some of the products that we have. So what I did was I am actually using isolate to access the immune system. So isolate CBD is actually not my active ingredient. It's a compilation of things. So I use that as because I go after the certain receptors. Okay, so I'm trying to rebuild the cellular components and tissues, body tissues, which include anti-aging from the inside out. So I use isolate as my vehicle, and it's not my active ingredient. When you're doing your labeling, that's another huge thing. You'll have to identify, obviously, the amount of CBD on your labels and what your actives versus your inactives are. But if you have CBD, in your product, then that's considered one of your actives, even though that's not actually the way I use it in some of my products. So it can be confusing.
Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah.
So I would agree with that, is using the vehicle. And I think then and putting the name on the product, and again, just educating people and being open and informing them. And you're quite the educational person, right? Like I sat with her yesterday for about an hour, and she's brilliant in what she's doing. But the problem is that not everybody out there is like that. And all we're advocating is don't become one of them.
Right.
Really, just become someone who's an educator and explain why and what you're doing and how you're using it. And I think that's all good because there's room for everybody in this space.
Absolutely.
Just be open and honest.
Mm-hmm.
Kim, I have a two-part question.
Okay.
So I march into TJ Maxx for dog parts, and I march into Nordstrom's for shoes, and I go to the convenience store for my gas, and I go to Walgreens for my prescriptions. And I see your face, you know where I'm going with this. I see products on every single one of these shelves that scream cosmetic, beauty, topical. So the first part of the question is, does it matter where I get it from? Does the quality stand out depending on where I get it from? And what are the liabilities in producing subpar products, and what is defined as a subpar product?
Okay. Well, really, you can't judge it as a whole. I would say you'd be more likely to find subpar products in like a gas station or something just because of price points. But a lot of it really does come down to branding. I think branding is a huge differentiator in the industry. I don't know if you've seen my booth, but my booth is bright. Like you can't really miss it if you walk down the aisle. It's going to come down to testing as well, making sure that the products are tested. If you go and pull products off the shelves and go submit them to Botanica or something like that, one of those labs, you'd be amazed how many products don't even have CBD in them. So I think that the testing piece is going to help kind of separate the garbage from what's good out there. And to create a product that is good quality, generally the cost is going to be higher. So yes and no, you can make a snake oil and charge tremendous amounts and put good branding on it and people will buy it. So it's going to be really coming down to each individual thing. You know, I can't say as a whole, just because you're finding something at TJ Maxx, it's garbage versus what's at Nordstrom. They just either got lucky, spoke to the right people. I'm not sure if that's a good answer or not. What's that?
Or have good marketing.
Yeah, have good marketing or have deep pockets, because some people with really deep pockets can still source mostly trash ingredients and make it as cheap as possible, but they know the right people. So you can't discredit everything just because of where you're finding it. Yeah.
Anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll add to that. So it all starts with genetics and how you grow the plant and what are you using it for. So anytime you're buying anything, you know, they sell these energy drinks or these poppers and stuff that you can buy in gas stations and convenience stores and those types of things. They work for some people, they don't work for others. I think that if you're buying it because you have arthritis or serious inflammation or a chronic condition or something like that, what you're going to buy in a gas station, I'm not so sure it's going to be effective. So the first thing is why are you buying it? Why are you using it to consume that product? And then you can value what the benefit is to you. But if you're looking for something really kind of medicinal and healing, you're not going to find it there. And you know, CVS and Walgreens, they put products in their store. I'm not going to name names, but again, these people are putting hemp seed oil in their products with less than 50 parts per million of CBD. There's absolutely no benefit of CBD. It's a great nutrient, great for the skin. We use it, but it has absolutely no anti-inflammatory effects. So that's how you got to kind of think about these types of things. So, and you would expect that in a drugstore, you would find a good quality product. So I think a lot of these people have connections. They get into these stores and they have somebody who's the buyer and whatever, and they get in and they can make it. But again, most of these people are looking, they're bean counters. They're looking at, you know, when there's a defective part on a car. They don't do a recall until there's enough accidents or enough people are suing, because it's worth it for them to pay off the lawsuits before they would do a recall because it's so expensive. And a lot of people are just betting on those kind of, they don't care how good it is. They're going to just mismarket it. There are good people out there too. I'm not saying that, but I would just say that first ask what you're going to buy it for, what you need it. If it's something medicinal, I'm not sure you'd find it in a gas station.
Okay. So yeah, at this point, we're going to open it up to questions because we're running out of time. My friend over there has a mic and he'll be passing it around. Right behind you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm new to the industry. Could you build on the full spectrum? Like if you put full spectrum on the product versus putting, you mentioned the word isolates. Mm-hmm. Could you build into that so I understand a little bit more the differences?
He wants the difference between, sure. Do you get?
Yeah, I can tell you why I do it and just a generalistic difference. So when you have a full spectrum product, you have a whole list of cannabinoids. There's probably more than what we even know because we haven't separated everything and learned everything about the plant that there is to know. I strictly use isolate because I'm going after a specific delivery system, and I look at it like this. When you are dealing with my space deals specifically with the immune response and building back the body from the inside out. So I have a very specific niche that I'm in. The reason why it includes beauty is because I deal with reversing reactive oxygen species and UV damage. So aging, intrinsic aging and extrinsic aging. So the reason I use just one isolated cannabinoid is because I am looking for a direct path straight to the immune cells, the immune system itself, without what I call clutter, right? The immune system is very complex and I don't need any confusion. I need a direct route so that I can supply the cells at the cellular level with the rest of the actives, right? So that's basically the difference. You're dealing with one versus many, right? And there's interaction, some interaction that we don't know, right, about. You do get, I believe, a little bit more pain relief for certain chronic ailments with full spectrum, but that is definitely not my angle for, my signature product. There are other topicals, right, that we have that have different applications and that we're targeting different things for. But I just need that direct delivery system. So it really depends on, you could use full spectrums even and isolates in your products and get different effects. So you just have to kind of learn what those interactions are. Does that make sense?
Very clear.
Okay.
Very clear.
All right.
I have a question since I have the mic and then you have to clean. So for you that you do the pleasure products,
Yes.
if you recall, how much did it cost you before launching your brand to test, to be compliant, to all this? Give me an idea, please, of how much cost are we talking about before even thinking to launch? I'm not talking the cost of a website, but really to be compliant,
Okay.
lab
Compliant?
lab certified.
Unfortunately, I'm not technically compliant. Nobody is that has CBD Intimate Products. It's just not possible. And that's why I'm working with the FDA. I will not be able to get an FDA cleared like lube or anything. It's just not possible. We're talking millions, like multi-millions.
Like
to get
$7 million to get through the FDA.
minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Like from what they told me that I was needing, the average was $35 million for the type, because it's considered a medical device. So I'm just kind of being friendly with the FDA and working with them. I was very lucky. I hired a female chemist out of Boulder when I was formulating my initial product. And she, out of the kindness of her heart, did not charge me at all for helping me come up with the amount of CBD that I wanted to use in the products. They worked with me. I was completely bootstrapped. I own a photography studio as well. And so I self-funded everything out of the profits of my other company and just bootstrapped everything. Really, before launching, I probably only put in maybe $10,000. So I was very blessed. You can go the other route and you can try to start out getting an FDA clearance if you've got, billionaire friend or something like that. But I don't see CBD being an FDA cleared like intimate. I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime.
Right. The truth is that there is no standard for the FDA. The FDA simply tells us what we cannot do. So the compliance question, there isn't a road to the FDA to get that stamp of approval. Technically, it's federally illegal.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about compliance, we're talking about making medical claims and content and context of what we're promising the consumer, and the FDA saying, don't do that.
Well, and there's a difference between an exemption and having something cleared. So right now I'm working on my exemption. So I have to do all of this paperwork saying why I shouldn't be, why I don't have to be a completely cleared thing. But yeah, it's not going to happen. So just be careful with your wording is what I would recommend. Not making claims. I can't even have my products say that you can use them internally. Hope they don't watch this video.
We have at our booth, for instance, all I can do is show photographs of before and afters. So basically everything that I'm in, the space that I'm in is pertaining to a lot of physical, outward, medical type of conditions or pathology, right? But I can't go out and say, I cured herpes or we, treat herpes. Maybe, amongst, industry professionals, which I do speak pretty bluntly too, but I can't have my advertising go out and say that, right? So even the product names have different labels. Like this is the lips kit. I'm not saying that I'm going to cure your oral herpes, right? So you do have to be careful, and we ride the line as much as we can without getting into trouble about those medical claims, right down to cancer, things like that, right? So you do have to be careful, and what you can focus on is discussing symptomology versus disease, and that will help you a little bit. So if you're really, saying things, for instance, like, we target discomfort versus pain. So discomfort, of lesions related to shingles, right? You can't say we're going to treat your shingles So you do, it's a play on words, but that's pretty much the space we're in. So every comment that you make as far as your outward publications has to be very careful. Yeah. I'm assuming that I'll be not under the radar for too much longer.
At 12:30, you can sit in on that panel B, in the panel room B for
Can I
that.
add something real quick? Yeah, I mean, I would recommend, if you have the funds, I think it would be good to invest in a compliance attorney that specializes in CBD or cannabis. I just didn't have the funds, and I didn't want to go into a ton of debt to start my company. But if you have the funds, just start out getting a compliance attorney that works with the FDA. Yeah.
The other thing is that, are you finished?
No,
sorry.
I'm done. Go ahead.
The other thing is that it's the type of product, right? So if you're at the 0.3% THC, you're in the hemp spectrum. You're not in the cannabis side of things. So compliance is a lot less restrictive on the hemp side of things. And then it comes down to the verbiage that you use. So anyway, for anyone that was interested.
Thank you. Next question?
Topically, is there too much CBD? Can you have too strong of a dose, or at some point does it become wasted? What's the cap?
Probably a good question for you.
Yeah, so that depends on the route of administration, obviously in the body part and the skin. So your epidermis is not the same on all parts of your body. But what we do know is there is some standardization in white papers, and you can read them online. Those questions are variable, or the answers are variable. So for instance, you're not going to retain CBD past 1 day topically. It won't last. And it's different also in your bloodstream for the length of time that it's absorbed, into your bloodstream and then excreted. So there will be some wasted. To answer your question, you'll have waste. I'm not a super fan of, super high milligram concentration products. I am a fan of microdosing, just because of the scientific research that I've personally done. Microdosing is very effective. What I mean by that is, you have cells and you have receptors, and you don't have an unlimited number of receptors per cell, right? So would it make sense to have some 1,800 milligram product when there's nothing to absorb it? Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Is there a quantifiable limit to that, though? I mean, is it 1,000 milligrams for?
So in general, the studies that I have read, that the most recent ones, is essentially that you'll retain, after 1 day, you'll retain anywhere from 13 to 17 milligrams of a CBD product. So it doesn't really matter, I think, how high you start. It's going to be wasted. So it's hard to quantify that. Does that make sense? I suspect that metabolically, everyone's going to be different. And then it also matters what age you are, what age your cells are. And what I mean by that is not just your genetic age, but the age of your actual cells. So what you put into your body metabolically matters. So everything that you ingest is expressed outward, right, in your body and your skin cells and all the cells of your body. So if you are in a heavily acidotic environment, for instance, like you smoke a lot of marijuana or you eat a lot of sugar, you're creating a bad environment for your cells. So you have to think about all of those things. Everyone's going to be metabolically different. There is no cutoff. That would be very difficult to research because every human is different. Does that make sense?
Where do you think we're going with THC Delta 8 and topicals, specifically for pain and those kind of things?
I don't believe that Delta 8 is going to be around for very long, to be honest with you. I was not in on that panel because I'm not a Delta 8 expert. But I will say that I know there are maybe 13, 14 states that still have Delta 8 as.
We have 11 states that ban it and 10 states that are writing to ban it right now.
Right. So I don't think that's going to be, it's a huge moneymaker right now, I believe, in the industry, but I don't believe it's going to be around because you can't, it's the body's metabolically changing the compound, right? So it have that psychoactive effect. I believe they're going to try to regulate it just like they do THC. That's what I suspect.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I can tell you based on the data that we've gotten back from our customers who use it, 25 milligrams of a full spectrum seems to be an across the board, right? Because you can't make a topical and for everyone specifically. You can absolutely do that, but it'd be cost prohibitive. But if you're just looking to put out a general product, that would be maybe a good rule of thumb to start with. But again, I would get people that you're going to have try it. And as Marie said, is that everybody's different. Their metabolic rates, not to mention what they're using it for and the intensity of a spasm or a muscle cramp or any of those types of things as to how effective it might be. As an example, I get spasms, actually cramps, Charlie horses in the back of my neck from the radiation that I took. And I can take a dab of it and put it on there and it'll reduce that spasm. But I'm also very susceptible. I'm probably the lightest weight consumer of cannabis out here. But somebody else that may have a high tolerance, it may not do anything for them. So you're going to have those outliers. That's the other part, right?
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's really
25
tough.
25 milligrams is what I landed on with my chemist per serving or use for my intimate products for them to be most effective for pain without moving into that realm of being too analgesic for, numbing, if you will. I think that's like the magic number personally for that area.
Yeah, you're looking at per serving too. So per serving is actually what matters, not necessarily the full concentration of the bottle or the jar, right, for the topical. So you're breaking that down to per serving. We for instance have a tincture bottle where the serving size is literally 4.25 milligrams of isolate per 5 drops. So yeah.
And with that, a lot of people are putting on their labels, they'll say a 4-ounce bottle of cream, it's 800 milligrams. Well, you got to do the math, right? And so what we will put on ours is how many milligrams per ounce. So if you have a 1.5 ounce bottle, it says, if it's 100 milligrams, it's
Labeling's
150.
critical. Yeah.
Okay, unfortunately, because this has been a great panel.
Sorry.
It might go down as my favorite so far. Don't be sorry. Unfortunately, I have to close this panel out because I have to keep the schedule or they'll fire me. So be sure and find these 3 on the floor, have your conversations, get in touch with them. You can find me on the floor. I'm happy to talk to you about compliance as well. You don't necessarily have to hire an attorney. I have one that backs me. That makes me a little bit cheaper. And of course, please find them. The next panel I'll be on is in panel room B at 12:30. We'll be talking about what you can and cannot say and keeping you nice and safe from the FDA. Thank you.
Can we offer some samples if they want to take some? If they want to come by and get some, can they?
Yeah. Sample
No,
anything.
asking